All right, very quickly. This video is going to be about an inversion prep for your shoulders, and this isn't really about taking weight on the hands or anything, but it's something to get the muscles around the shoulder blades working before you actually start to put your weight on your hands and going upside down. And when you're going into a full handstand, eventually you want to really get some control and have a more efficient shape. And this isn't a rigid thing, but trying to get close to it. You want to get to a point where you can be on your hands, and rather than having your shoulders plunged and have a bend at the shoulders, coming into a full extension of the arms and full flexion of the shoulder joint. So where the shoulder joint is actually pushing in, and basically the shoulder blades and the upper back are really pulling everything in toward the back of your ribs, so that you can actually hold that line and stay upside down in a more stable shape. Now it's hard to do that. It's hard to get those muscles to turn on when you're not using them. It's hard to get them used to taking all the load when you're bearing the weight of your own body. And I still struggle with this. I end up having to do a good amount of work to actually open this up and get into that and remind myself. It's very fatiguing when you're not used to it, keep in mind. But to light this kind of thing up, so a way to do this without just fatiguing the muscles, but turning them on and getting them used to doing some work and ready to do some work, what I do recommend is having something that you can basically roll your low back on, or put pressure on, or onto the upper back rather. So here I'm using a soccer ball. This is kind of my go-to actually. I would say I would recommend actually using something like this, like a soccer ball, basketball around this size. It's nice that it's round. You can focus where it is between your shoulder blades and on your back, and the pressure is distributed a little bit without any sort of edges. You can also use a couple of yoga blocks. There's a bunch of other things you can use. You can use a smaller ball if you want. If you're using a small, very hard ball, it's going to get very intense. So whatever suits you best, maybe you're into that, I don't know, but just kind of work things out. So two things I recommend. So using this, I recommend using this in conjunction with a strap or with some light weights. And I've got two 5-pound ankle weights here. If you're not used to this kind of thing, or if you haven't really done it before, 5 pounds is a bit much on each hand. I'd say start with probably about 1 or 2 pounds. That's really all you need to feel this. But coming into this, I'm just going to bring my back onto the ball and move around a little bit. See that you can center your weight on the ball and just press down. So obviously, if I lift my butt up off the floor, kind of like coming to a bridge or a reverse tabletop or something like that. And then see about just moving around, bring the ball in between your shoulder blades. There's no perfect position. You probably adjust a little bit up and down. And then with this strap, I'm going to engage the muscles around the shoulders and the upper back. So I'm going to bring my arms behind me, and there's a bunch of different holds you can do. No one of them is magic. But here the strap's a little bit wider than shoulder width. I'm just going to rotate my thumbs back and let my chest open up. So I extend my arms back, reaching from the shoulders, and then I'm just going to sink down onto the ball so I can actually feel everything press into the upper back. Now while I'm doing that, I'm getting more tension by pulling that strap out to the sides. And you may just want to hold this for just a few seconds here. Move back and forth with it if you like. And if you want to start moving the arms, or if you don't want to take this quite this far, you can have a bend in the elbows and let this open up the upper back. I do recommend pulling. So engaging the muscles of just opening up your chest and pulling out to the sides does help to come into this quite a bit deeper, keep in mind. And if you want to take this in a little bit more movement, well actually, as an alternate hold, I'm just going to bring my arms out even wider, and again, just sink into this. And I recommend it's going back and forth. You can go up and down, hold some tension, and come out of it. And maybe holding for a little bit longer time. You don't have to be a maniac about this. Holding for 15 to 30 seconds, at one round at a time, is probably plenty. I'd go back and forth to that a few times and just kind of play around with this whole setup for maybe 2 to 5 minutes at the most. Another variation from here is to use a bit of weight. And so you want one weight for each hand. And like I said, this is 5 pounds, which I think is probably a bit much if you haven't really been doing this kind of thing. So maybe start with about 2 pounds or so. But from here, I just want to feel this weight. Start with bent elbows if you haven't done this weighted, because this is a lot and you don't want to go right to full extension of the arms. So again, just find that position somewhere in the mid to upper back between your shoulder blades and let your head just relax. And just feel this out. And I recommend just kind of moving your arms as though you're making snow angels here if you grew up in a place where there's a lot of snow. Pulling the elbows into your sides. And then bring the arms past your head. And if you haven't really done this before, this will feel like a hell of a lot. So that weight on your arms is going to draw things down. And it doesn't take much to feel this. As you get used to this, you may find you're able to straighten the arms out more. But just take things slow. Let your chest open up. You might feel things, sort of pop a little bit, different levels of tension between all those sheets of muscle that move over each other. And if you can take it, then go ahead and start to extend your arms slowly. Bring them past your head. Try to reach for the shoulders. And from here, I'm just letting the weight sink my hands down toward the floor, and then I'm dropping my hips down here. And I am putting the arch into my spine, but rather than focusing on the low back, I'm trying to bring it into the mid to upper back to really open up the chest. And I tend to just hold this for time, maybe about 15 seconds to even a full minute sometimes just to feel this out. And it's a good way to decompress even after a lot of inversion. But this is a good place to start, before you've gone upside down. And again, maybe just moving back and forth, maybe just keep the arms out wide. The whole deal here is you want to open up the chest with a little bit extra weight so you can feel this out, and let your body relax into it and open up through the front of the body as the back of the body starts tensing up. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And keep in mind, you don't necessarily need a ball, but these things are everywhere. You can go to Target, get a volleyball, get a basketball. This isn't a lot of expense, keep in mind. And whatever you hold on, you don't need a lot of weight. This is just a bike inner tube here that I'm using as an elastic band. But this does help a lot before you start practicing inversions for a session, when you just start going up on a particular day, especially just because the arms need to get used to it, the shoulders need to get used to it, and people tend not to take the weight in those muscles. So just have that in mind.